5:47 a.m., Fargo, North Dakota. Mike Harmon stands in his kitchen, coffee growing cold in his hands. The email on his phone has just 3 lines. Effective immediately. Do not report to work. Termination paperwork will follow. 32 years of loyalty. Gone in 47 words. Across America's heartland, 5,000 families just discovered that $34.5 billion worth of manufacturing can disappear overnight. Not from war, not from disaster, from corporate betrayal. Case IH just gutted the heart of America's farming industry, shutting down their entire U.S. manufacturing operation with 0 warning. Entire towns devastated, farmers left with equipment they can't repair and parts that suddenly cost 300% more. But here's what Case IH executives didn't count on. American farmers don't break, they fight back. What I'm about to show you is how this corporate betrayal sparked the biggest rural uprising we've seen in decades. A revolution that's rewriting the rules of American manufacturing right before our eyes. Let me take you to Fargo, North Dakota, 3 weeks ago. Tom Keller sits in his pickup truck outside the locked factory gates, engine running, unable to drive away. He keeps tapping his fingers on the steering wheel, staring at the building where his family's legacy was forged. The morning frost covers his windshield, but he doesn't turn on the wipers. He's paralyzed by disbelief. My grandfather started at Case IH in 1952, he tells me, his voice cracking. Came back from Korea and got hired the same week. My father worked there 40 years, never missed a day, not even when my mother was in the hospital. I was there 22 years. My son just started last summer, so proud to carry on the tradition. He pauses, wiping his eyes with the back of his work-worn hands. 4 generations of Kellers, now what? We're supposed to just disappear? Like we never mattered? Behind him, other workers sit in their vehicles, some crying, others just staring in shock. The parking lot that once buzzed with shift changes now feels like a funeral procession. Personal belongings scattered in cardboard boxes sit abandoned on the asphalt. Family photos, coffee mugs with children's drawings, tools passed down from fathers to sons. The termination emails arrived like digital death sentences at exactly 5:47 a.m. No meetings, no explanations, no human voice delivering the news that would shatter thousands of lives. Just cold corporate language. Effective immediately. Do not report to work. Termination paperwork will follow. Security guards, hired overnight from a company 3 states away, handed out boxes and escorted workers to their cars like criminals. Frank Kowalski, a 58-year-old assembly line supervisor, described the surreal scene. I arrived at 6 a.m. like I had for 36 years. The gates were locked. Security guard I'd never seen before hands me a box and says, "You have 15 minutes to collect personal items, 15 minutes to pack up a lifetime of work." While American workers cleared out their lockers, Case IH executives were celebrating their global restructuring at a luxury retreat in the Swiss Alps. Internal documents I obtained show they were projecting 22% increases in executive bonuses, while calculating that severance costs would be minimized by the sudden shutdown. One leaked email from CEO Scott Wine read, "The American operation has become a liability. Our shareholders will thank us for this decisive action." The betrayal cut especially deep because these workers had been given no warning. Just months earlier, Case IH had pushed employees to work overtime to meet production quotas. They'd hired new workers, including Tom Keller's son. They'd even held a company picnic in July, with executives praising the bright future of American manufacturing. The shock waves hit dealers like a sledgehammer across the Midwest. Eleanor Ketchum, 62, third-generation owner of Heartland Farm Equipment in Iowa, stared at the corporate email that arrived without warning. After 47 years selling exclusively Case IH, her dealership faced an existential crisis that would ripple through her entire community. No advanced warning, no transition plan, no parts supply guarantees, she says, her voice hollow as she walks through her now empty showroom. Just a sterile email and a promise of further information to follow. I've got 23 employees who have been with me for decades. What am I supposed to tell them? She pulls out her 300-page franchise agreement, pointing to clauses that gave her no recourse. Exclusive Case IH dealers were contractually prohibited from carrying competitor brands while now having no viable product to sell or support. Within minutes of the announcement, her phone lines jammed with panicked farmers. Her receptionist, Mary Chen, who'd worked there 28 years, fielded call after call from desperate customers. It was heartbreaking, Mary recalls. These weren't just customers. They were neighbors, friends, people whose families I'd known for generations. And I had no answers for them. Marcus Johnson, who farms 3,000 acres of corn and soybeans, stormed into Eleanor's dealership that afternoon, his face red with anger and desperation. He'd just invested $645,000 in new Case IH equipment, a combine harvester and 2 tractors, financed through the company's own credit division. Now, he watched his investment become worthless overnight. This part would have been $200 and a one-day fix last month, he says, pointing to his broken combine harvester sitting idle in his field. Now they're telling me $1,200 and a 6-week wait, if they can even get it. My crop will rot in the field by then. I'm looking at losing $400,000 in corn if I can't harvest in the next 2 weeks. The parts supply chain collapsed immediately. Carlos Mendez, Case IH's parts distribution manager, explained to desperate dealers that American warehouses were depleting with no clear resupply timeline as international production struggled to adapt. We're trying to redirect inventory from Brazil and Germany, he admitted in a leaked conference call. But the logistics are a nightmare, and frankly, American farmers aren't the priority anymore. But this betrayal struck at the worst possible moment for American agriculture, which was already bleeding from wounds most Americans don't even know exist. Since the trade war reignited, China had systematically withdrawn from U.S. agricultural markets with surgical precision, not with dramatic announcements or angry rhetoric, but through quiet cancellations and non-renewed contracts. Over 600,000 metric tons of soybeans sit stranded across the Midwest. Physical grain rotting in storage while farmers struggle to pay mounting storage fees. American soybeans, once dominant in Shanghai markets, vanished from shelves almost overnight as Brazilian and Argentine suppliers swooped in to fill the void. These weren't temporary arrangements. They were multi-decade contracts stretching through 2030 and beyond, permanently locking American farmers out of their largest market. The timing was devastating. Case IH wasn't just abandoning workers and dealers. They were kicking American farmers when they were already down, removing the last reliable source of equipment support, just as farmers faced their greatest crisis since the Dust Bowl. It was a perfect storm of corporate greed, political miscalculation, and agricultural devastation that would reshape the American heartland forever. The real nightmare began in America's fields, where the abstract corporate decisions became brutal, immediate reality. James Harmon, a fifth-generation wheat farmer working 2,400 acres in Kansas, faced every farmer's worst fear when his $800,000 combine harvester broke down just 3 days into harvest season. The sensor module controlling the threshing system failed at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of breakdown that once meant a quick call to the dealer and overnight parts delivery. Instead, James found himself staring at a machine that had become an $800,000 paperweight. Every 24 hours of delay cost me $7,500, he explains, watching dark storm clouds gather on the horizon. But it's not just the money. That's 5 generations of work sitting in those fields. My great-great-grandfather broke this land with a horse and plow. The weather forecast showed rain for the next week, rain that would ruin his wheat crop if he couldn't harvest immediately. James called every Case IH dealer within 300 miles. The answer was always the same: indefinite backorder, no estimated delivery date, no alternatives available. The part that once cost $300 and arrived overnight now sat somewhere in a Brazilian warehouse with no clear path to Kansas. I've got neighbors offering to help, but their equipment is different brands with incompatible systems, James says, his voice breaking. We used to joke about brand loyalty. Now I realize it was brand dependency, and that dependency just became a death sentence. That's when Sarah Jenkins became an unexpected hero for farmers across America. The 29-year-old tech-savvy farmer from Illinois had grown up around Case IH equipment, but also understood software and electronics in ways her father's generation never could. When her own tractor's computer system locked her out of basic repairs, she didn't accept defeat. Instead, she set up a live stream in her barn and began showing desperate farmers how to bypass Case IH's software locks. "If they won't support us, we'll support ourselves," she declared to her rapidly growing audience. Her laptop balanced on a workbench as she demonstrated how to override equipment software that prevented unauthorized repairs. Her first video, titled "How to Fix What Case IH Won't," garnered 27 million views within 48 hours. Comments poured in from farmers worldwide, Australia, Canada, Germany, all sharing their own workarounds and repair techniques. An underground network of knowledge began forming, farmer to farmer, bypassing corporate gatekeepers entirely. The knowledge was always there, Sarah tells me, as she demonstrates how to reprogram a tractor's computer system. "These companies just convinced us we weren't smart enough to fix our own equipment. They made us dependent on their service networks, their parts monopolies, their software locks. But farmers have been fixing things for centuries. We just forgot we could." The economic tsunami from Case IH's shutdown obliterated entire communities across America's heartland with devastating speed and scope. In Fargo alone, 1,200 jobs vanished overnight. That's 43% of the town's entire workforce. But the damage didn't stop at the factory gates, spreading through the community like a virus. Sarah Lindholm, who owns the only diner on Fargo's east side, watched her world crumble in real time. "I've lost 70% of my business in 2 weeks, she says, wiping down empty tables that once buzzed with conversation during shift changes. "These weren't just customers, they were family. I knew their kids' names, their anniversaries, their dreams. Now the place is like a morgue." The Midwest Bank in Fargo reported over 300 mortgage defaults in just the first month after the announcement. "We're seeing a mass exodus," explains Mayor Robert Jennings, standing in his nearly empty city hall. "U-Haul can't keep trucks in stock. Our school just lost 78 students in 2 weeks. That's 3 entire classrooms gone. The tax base is collapsing just when we need revenue most to help people transition. For every manufacturing job lost, 4 more disappeared in surrounding businesses. Local hardware stores that supplied Case IH workers for generations began boarding up their windows. Gas stations saw traffic plummet. Michael Chen, CEO of Precision Hydraulics in nearby Indiana, gathered his 180 employees in the facility break room to deliver news that would shatter their lives. After 38 years supplying Case IH, 70% of their business disappeared overnight. "We've weathered recessions, trade wars, and pandemics," he told the silent crowd. "But nothing prepared us for being abandoned by our primary customer without warning. I have to let 126 of you go, effective immediately." The cause wasn't obvious at first. This wasn't a drought or gas price surge. It was the ripple effect of collapsed U.S. farm exports combined with equipment shortages creating food production bottlenecks. As farmers struggled with broken machinery and delayed harvests, livestock producers faced feed shortages. Processing plants scaled back operations. Small producers faced razor-thin margins that forced many out of business entirely. Feed costs for livestock producers spiked 35% due to supply disruptions. Without reliable equipment to harvest feed crops on schedule, dairy farmers watched milk production drop while costs soared. The cost of beef rose 12% between March and May. Poultry followed with 18% increases. Then dairy products jumped 22%. Experts predict food prices could jump 15% by harvest season if farmers can't get their equipment running. Thousands of miles away, the consequences of America's agricultural crisis showed up in unexpected places that revealed the global interconnectedness of food systems. Market stalls in Cairo, grocery chains in Manila, and open-air markets in Lagos all felt the impact as U.S. exports dried up and prices swung unpredictably. In Egypt, the cost of wheat-based staples rose 15% as the government scrambled to replace American grain contracts. The Philippines saw soy-based animal feed prices spike 25%, threatening poultry and livestock operations across the islands. Nigeria rushed to sign higher-priced emergency grain contracts with India and Argentina, passing costs to consumers who could least afford them. Meanwhile, foreign buyers swooped in to purchase American farmland as desperate farmers sold to overseas investors with no connection to local communities or American food security. Chinese firms, Saudi investors, Canadian conglomerates, and Brazilian agribusinesses began acquiring U.S. farmland at accelerating rates, buying thousands of acres at prices that seemed generous to struggling farmers, but represented strategic long-term investments for foreign powers. What had once been national food security infrastructure was becoming a fragmented, foreign-managed asset class. Land that had been passed down through 5 generations was sold to overseas buyers who viewed it not as heritage, but as commodity. The American dream of family farming was being auctioned off to the highest bidder, one foreclosure at a time. They thought we'd just roll over and die. They forgot who they're dealing with. Iowa farmer Elaine Carpenter's words, spoken with quiet fury at a town hall meeting, captured the spirit of what was about to explode across America's heartland. It started when 200 farmers drove their Case 1H tractors to the shuttered Fargo factory, parking them to spell out "betrayed," visible from satellites. Tom Keller, whose family story had become a symbol of the betrayal, climbed onto his grandfather's 1987 Case 1H tractor to address the crowd. "This isn't just about jobs," he shouted over the rumble of diesel engines. "This is about whether American companies can abandon American communities and get away with it." The photos went viral with 14 million views in 48 hours, shared across every platform and picked up by news outlets worldwide. But more importantly, they sparked something deeper, a sense that farmers weren't powerless victims, but a force to be reckoned with. The Number Red Paint Revolt movement exploded from that moment. Thousands of farmers began repainting their Case 1H equipment black, symbolically burying the brand. Keith Jansen organized the first community painting event in Nebraska's fairgrounds. "This isn't just about making a statement," he explained as volunteers helped repaint a massive combine. "It's about breaking the psychological hold these companies have over farmers. That red paint made us loyal to a company that wasn't loyal to us." These painting events became community rallies drawing 5,000 people. Churches provided food. High school bands played patriotic songs. Children painted their faces black in solidarity. Case IH stock plummeted 27% as the movement spread globally, with farmers from Australia to Germany posting their own equipment transformations. Sarah Jenkins' repair videos evolved into a nationwide right-to-repair revolution. Her YouTube channel reached 2.3 million subscribers, featuring detailed tutorials on everything from hydraulic repairs to computer programming. "The knowledge was always there," she tells me, in her barn-turned broadcast studio. "These companies just convinced us we weren't smart enough to fix our own equipment." Repair Rebellion events spread to 27 states, with 40,000 pieces of equipment repaired through underground networks. At a massive Nebraska event, 500 farmers brought disabled equipment to a fairground, where volunteer engineers provided free training. 14 state legislatures fast-tracked right-to-repair bills targeting agricultural equipment. But the most revolutionary development was farmers building their own equipment. John Martinez addressed 78 farmers who pooled $2.3 million to purchase manufacturing equipment and hire laid-off Case IH workers. Behind him stood the first prototype Prairie Workhorse tractor. "For a century, we've been told only corporations can build the tools we need," Martinez declared to thunderous applause. "That ends today. We understand our needs better than any executive in a distant boardroom." The farmer-designed equipment emphasized repairability over planned obsolescence, modularity over proprietary systems. Every component could be repaired with standard tools. Pre-orders exceeded production capacity by 300%, as farmers demanded equipment built by people who understood their daily challenges and priorities. The Case IH crisis reshaped politics in unprecedented ways that stunned Washington insiders. When Trump vowed 200% tariffs on Case IH equipment manufactured abroad, something shocking happened. Bipartisan unity emerged around protecting American manufacturing. Democratic senators from agricultural states aligned with Trump on punitive measures, breaking decades of partisan gridlock. Conservative Senator Richard Johnson and Progressive Representative Maria Chen symbolized this shift when they jointly signed the Manufacturing Commitment Pledge at a ceremony in Iowa. When people's jobs are threatened, ideological differences fade and practical solutions become the priority, noted political scientist Dr. Thomas Wilson. Trump signed the Manufacturing Sovereignty Act with rare bipartisan support, fundamentally shifting America's approach to corporate accountability and trade policy. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds declared an economic emergency, directing state agencies to assist affected communities. Attorneys general from 4 farming states announced joint investigations into whether Case YH violated mass layoff laws. The political realignment was so dramatic that 87% of rural voters supported manufacturing retention policies regardless of party affiliation. Meanwhile, Silicon Valley recognized unprecedented opportunity in agriculture's disruption. The technological revolution completely transformed the playing field in ways that made Case YH's departure seem almost irrelevant. Monarch Tractor received $387 million in Series C funding for autonomous electric tractors that navigated fields independently while collecting terabytes of data. Microsoft's Farm Cloud platform allowed 20-year-old machines to perform precision operations comparable to newest models through add-on sensors and cloud computing. Farmers don't need to replace their tractors to join the digital revolution, explained Sarah Martinez, showing how ancient equipment could access cutting-edge capabilities. Richard Thompson, a 58-year-old traditional farmer, described his transformation. "I fought against these computers for years. Now I can't imagine farming without them. My yields are up, costs down, and I work fewer hours while monitoring everything from my tablet. Each field generates 18 terabytes of actionable data daily," explained agricultural data scientist Emma Chen. "We can optimize planting density, fertilizer application, and harvest timing down to the square meter rather than treating hundreds of acres identically." Globally, the agricultural center of gravity shifted permanently as America retreated. Brazil now feeds more than half the global soy market, with soybean fields in Mato Grosso stretching farther than the eye can see. Over the past decade, Brazil and Argentina invested billions in infrastructure with Chinese state-backed financing. Rail corridors, deep-water ports, processing facilities. China orchestrated this transformation with surgical precision, redirecting demand and rewriting global sourcing without firing a shot. They signed multi-decade contracts with Brazil through 2030, making American agriculture structurally irrelevant. Case IH's market share collapsed from 27% to 8.3%. with $1.7 billion in brand value destruction, far exceeding the $450 million in projected savings from offshoring production. 5 years later, American agriculture had transformed completely. Emma Rodriguez, 26, monitored automated systems across diverse crop fields. "We're using 1/3 less equipment while producing more diverse crops," she explains. Priorities shifted from maximum yield to resilience. Universities reported 47% increases in agricultural enrollment. Prairie Alliance equipment sharing. Cooperative grew to 300-member farms, reducing capital requirements by 70%. Farmers had reclaimed control over their tools, data, and destiny. Case IH became a cautionary tale, now taught in Harvard Business School as the classic strategic error. Trust, once broken, can't be repaired with financial incentives, noted former dealer John Martinez, who rejected multiple reopening offers. But there's something I didn't tell you about the secret project these farmers are building right now. While Case IH struggles to rebuild, American farmers are developing revolutionary equipment that could make traditional manufacturers completely obsolete. Equipment that's farmer-owned, farmer-designed, and farmer-controlled. If you want to see how they're creating the most advanced farming technology in history, technology that puts power back in the hands of people who actually grow our food, watch this video next. Because what you're about to discover will change everything you think you know about the future of American agriculture. This story isn't over. The fight for America's heartland continues every day. If their story moved you, share this video, support your local farmers, and hit subscribe. The revolution in American farming has already begun. The only question is, which side of history will you be on?